non-Arab states like Iran and Turkey to offset Arab hostility. But everything changed in 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini rose to power in a revolution that toppled the Shah. With him came a new ideology, fiercely anti-Western, anti-imperialist, and anti-Israel. The new Islamic Republic cut ties with Israel, calling it the Little Satan. Khomeini began supporting Palestinian resistance movements, including Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Iran's new government declared its goal, the destruction of Israel. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, a new proxy would soon emerge, Hezbollah. Israel's 1982 invasion of Lebanon led to the birth of Hezbollah, a Shia militant group backed by Iran. Hezbollah became Iran's sword in the Levant. Over the next decades, Iran poured money, weapons, and training into Hezbollah, which launched rocket attacks and guerrilla warfare against Israel. The conflict became regional. Israel accused Iran of orchestrating attacks from Argentina to Bulgaria. Iran blamed Israel for assassinating its nuclear scientists. And beneath it all was the nuclear race. In 2002, Iranian dissidents revealed secret nuclear sites. The world took notice. Israel, fearing an existential threat, began a campaign of sabotage. In 2010, the Stuxnet virus, a suspected U.S.-Israeli cyber weapon, crippled Iranian centrifuges. Between 2010 and 2020, multiple Iranian nuclear scientists were assassinated. Iran blamed Mossad. Meanwhile, Iran continued to expand its influence across Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, creating what Israel calls the Shia Crescent. In 2015, the Iran nuclear deal, known as the JCPOA, offered hope. But in 2018, the U.S. pulled out. Tensions soared. The Syrian civil war became a testing ground. Iran deployed forces to support Bashar al-Assad. Israel saw an opportunity and a threat. Between 2013 and 2023, Israel carried out hundreds of airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria, attempting to push back Iranian influence. Each strike was a message. Each response was a warning, but the war stayed in the shadows until 2024. In April 2024, an explosion rocked an Iranian military base near Isfahan. Iran blamed Israel. Within days, Iranian-backed militias struck U.S. bases in Iraq. By April 2025, Iran launched over 300 drones and missiles at Israeli cities. Most were intercepted, but the message was clear. The era of indirect war was over. Israel responded with strikes near Tehran, reportedly targeting nuclear facilities. The world held its breath. Iran now possesses enough highly enriched uranium to make a bomb within weeks. Israel, which has never confirmed its own nuclear arsenal, has said it will not allow a nuclear Iran. This is not just about two nations. It's about ideology, power, and survival. It's about alliances, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to Israeli ties with the UAE and Saudi Arabia. A miscalculation could ignite a regional war, or worse. Iran and Israel are locked in a cycle of hostility, fear, and retaliation. But history is not destiny. The same forces that led to conflict, ideology, fear, ambition, can also be turned toward peace. The question now is not how this war began. The question is, how will it end?
Well, Eric Stakelbeck is the host of The Watchman Show, airing weekly on TBN and the Fox Business Network. And Eric, it's good to see you again.
Good to be with you, John.
Eric, we know that you were in Iraq with the Kurds last month. How do you see all of this? Is America abandoning its allies by withdrawing our forces in Syria?
Yeah, John, I think there's no other way but to see it that way, that we have abandoned the Kurds in Syria. And John, think about it. Look, the Kurds lost at least 10,000 fighters fighting against ISIS, not only on their behalf, but on our behalf, with the help, of course, of American air support. But the Kurds were the tip of the spear on the ground fighting against ISIS, who is obviously a sworn enemy of America. As you mentioned, John, I was with the Iraqi Kurds just last month. That's kind of their cousins across the border there in Syria, who are being assaulted right now by the forces of Turkey. But the Iraqi Kurds made clear time and time again that, hey, we want to grow this alliance with America. They were very appreciative of President Trump and his commitment to crushing that ISIS caliphate. Now, John, I'm getting text messages and emails from the Kurds I was with just about 4 weeks ago, the Peshmerga, the Kurdish fighters there, saying, what is happening? What happened to America? Why are you abandoning us? So I think it sets a bad precedent, John, not only for our allies in the region, like the Kurds, like Israel also, but it emboldens our enemies, like Russia, like Bashar al-Assad, like the Iranians, like ISIS. And yes, although he is a NATO member, Recep Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is not a friend of the United States.
Syria, of course, you kind of mentioned this, is working with Russia to protect the Kurds there behind all of this. Eric, talk about how this potentially fuels a much broader Middle East war.
Yeah, Jenna, I think it's a great question. I think it comes down to Iran, to be honest with you, because those U.S. troops there, about 1,000 in all, about 50 or so near the Turkish border, but about 1,000 in all in Syria. President Trump announced just last night he's withdrawing all U.S. troops from Syria. What they did, Jenna, was they kind of provided a buffer between Iran and the Mediterranean, because the Iranian regime's goal is to establish a land corridor stretching from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, through Lebanon, onto the Mediterranean, guess where? At Israel's doorstep. Now, with no U.S. troop presence there, the Iranians have free rein. They can form that corridor, which will allow them to further bolster their presence on Israel's northern borders, not only in Lebanon, but in Syria. And there is this alliance budding as well between Turkey, Iran, and Russia, something to keep an eye on for sure.
Eric, I know from working with you for years and also from watching your show, you see things through a biblical lens. Is this in any way fulfilling biblical prophecy here?
Well, a lot of people, John, are pointing to Ezekiel 38 and 39, the war of Gog and Magog. They see that alliance shaping up between Russia and Iran and Turkey, three nations that seem to be mentioned. We all have different interpretations of biblical prophecy, but Turkey, Russia, Iran seem to be mentioned in that Gog and Magog coalition force, John. And it's so interesting because these nations have historically not been allies. They've actually fought wars against each other in the past. Now, in these interesting times in which we live, we see Russia, Iran, and Turkey coming together at Israel's doorstep.
All right, Eric Stakelbeck, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Eric.
Long ago, before Iran was called Iran, it was known as Persia. And before Israel became a country in 1948, it was a people, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Bible is filled with stories of these two nations. Some of them are peaceful, but others are filled with war, betrayal, and prophecy. This is their story. And it's not over yet. Esther, a Jewish queen in Persia. Over 2,500 years ago, the Jews were living in exile in Persia, modern-day Iran. A powerful Persian king named Ahasuerus, also called Xerxes, ruled the land. He had a beautiful Jewish wife named Esther, though he didn't know she was Jewish at first. One day, a wicked man named Haman, who hated the Jews, tricked the king into signing a law to kill every Jew in the empire, from India to Ethiopia. It was a terrifying moment. If Haman had succeeded, the Jewish people might have been wiped out completely. But God had a secret weapon. Esther, the hidden queen, risked her life to go before the king. She revealed her true identity and exposed Haman's evil plan. The king was shocked and furious. He ordered Haman to be hanged, on the same gallows Haman had built for the Jews. The Jews were saved in Iran. Yes, saved by a Persian king and a brave Jewish woman. But that was only the beginning. The prophecy of Ezekiel. In the Bible, the prophet Ezekiel gave a shocking prophecy about a future war. In Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, he describes a terrible attack against Israel. He says a mighty army will come from the north, led by a leader called Gog from the land of Magog. He will bring a coalition of nations with him. One of those nations is called Persia, ancient Iran. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets. Ezekiel 38 verse 5. This means Iran will be part of a future alliance that attacks Israel. It will not be a normal war. Ezekiel says the attackers will come like a storm, covering the land like a cloud. But just when Israel looks finished, God will act. I will summon a sword against Gog. I will rain down fire and hailstones and burning sulfur. Ezekiel 38 verses 21 to 22. God himself will destroy the armies attacking Israel. It will be so dramatic that the world will shake, and the nations will know that God is real. The shocking part: it hasn't happened yet. Iran's rise in the end times. Today, Iran's leaders openly say they want to destroy Israel. Their missiles have Hebrew words written on them. Death to Israel. They fund terror groups around Israel, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and others. Iran's hatred toward Israel is not just political, it's spiritual. The Bible says in Genesis 12 verse 3 that whoever curses the children of Abraham, Israel, will be cursed. That's a serious warning. But Iran is not alone. The Bible says that many nations will come against Israel in the last days. In the book of Zechariah 12 verse 3 it says, "On that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all nations. All who try to lift it will hurt themselves." Iran is trying to lift that stone, and one day it will be crushed by it. The spirit behind the conflict. The Bible shows that behind every nation, there are spiritual forces. In Daniel 10, the angel Gabriel tells Daniel that a demonic spirit called the Prince of Persia fought him for 21 days. That's right, Persia had a dark spirit behind it. And that spirit still exists. It's not just tanks and rockets. It's not just politics. It's a spiritual war. Iran's leaders often speak of a mysterious figure called the Mahdi, their version of a Messiah who will come in a time of chaos and war. They believe his arrival will destroy Israel and bring Islamic rule to the world. Sounds very much like the Antichrist in the Bible. A surprise twist in the Bible. But here comes the most shocking twist of all. In Isaiah 19, the Bible speaks of a strange and beautiful future. It says that in the last days, something amazing will happen. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. Israel will be the third, along with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing on the earth. Isaiah 19 verses 23 to 25. And even more shocking, "Blessed be Egypt my people, Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my inheritance." Isaiah 19 verse 25. Wait, what? Assyria includes parts of modern-day Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Could it be that one day, enemies like Iran and Israel will be united in peace, under the true God? After judgment comes mercy. God is not just the God of Israel. He is also the God of the nations, even Iran. Final war, final peace. The Iran-Israel conflict is not just about borders, oil, or religion. It's about ancient promises, spiritual forces, and the final chapters of human history. The Bible says that in the end, Jesus, the Jewish Messiah, will return. Every nation, including Iran, will bow before him. Every knee shall bow, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Philippians 2 verses 10 to 11. Some will bow in joy, others in terror. What side will Iran be on? What side will you be on? The conflict is real. The war is coming, but so is the king. The end. Or just the beginning. The Iran-Israel conflict is older than the newspapers say. It started in ancient Persia and will end at the return of Jesus. Between fire and prophecy, between hatred and hope, lies a future written not by politicians, but by God. And when that future comes, only those who know the truth will stand.